Okay, Erev Tov, we are at Nedarim Daf Hey Amud Bet, 5b, top line. Okay, so we ended off by saying that Shmuel added in that in our Mishnah, when it says, let's say, Merchukane Mimcha, I'm distance from you. So we said that alone is not going to work. You need She'ani Ochel Lecha, She'ani Tohem Lecha. Like, I'm distance from you, that I'm not going to eat from you. You need more specific. Alone is what he called Yadayim She'ena Mochichot. A yad, which is a handle of a neder, but that's not mochiach, that it's not specific, it's vague. And if it's vague, it could mean, we don't know what we said. It could mean I'm not going to do any business with you, I'm not going to walk beside you, and because we don't know what it means, or it could mean I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to have any connection with you. Because we don't know what it means, we said it means nothing, and you need more to be more specific. Now the Gemara questions, is this really Shmuel's opinion? Says the Gemara, Lema Kasavar Shmuel. Do we say that Shmuel is of the opinion, Yadayim she'en mochichot lo havyan yadayim? That the handles in Nedarim that are not mochiach, that are not specific, that are vague, are not considered yadayim, and it's like as if he said nothing? Answers the Gemara, yes. Shmuel mokim la kerav Yehuda. Shmuel, he goes like mokim la lematnitin kerav Yehuda. He looks at our Mishnah and he makes that, he says that our Mishnah's author is Rav Yehuda. He goes with Rav Yehuda that says you have to be specific. The Amar Yadayim she'en mochichot lo havyan yadayim. Yadayim that are not specific is not yadayim, and it's not like nothing. And where does he see that from? Where is this Rav Yehuda's source? In Masechet Gitin, the Tanan, as it says in the Mishnah, Masechet Gitin, Gufo shel get, the essence of the get is what? Hare at muter techol adam. You are now allowed to marry anyone. I mean, when a man writes to a woman, I'm getting divorced from you, that is the essence. And now you are allowed to marry anyone. So it would just say, Reuven writes, I, Reuven, am writing to Sarah, my wife, or my ex-wife now, on this and this date. You are now allowed to marry anyone. That is what the Mishnah says in Masechet Gitin. Rav Yehuda argues, and he says, no, you got to be more specific than that. What does he argue? What does he say? V'den, and this, dehavili, this is referring to this shtar, this get, this document, and this, dehavi lechi minai, that it's going to be yours from me, that's coming from me. Sefer tirochin, it's a sefer, it's a book, it's a document that's going to be, that's poter, that's releases you, the igeret shivukin, and a letter of abandonment. I'm going to abandon you. So Rav Yehuda says you have to be more specific, and that is the more specific thing, and therefore Shmuel goes with Rav Yehuda that says, you see, when it comes to wording, you have to be more specific, and that's where Shmuel's source is, like Rav Yehuda when it comes to Gitin. Okay. Let's see the run. The right side, a little bit down from where we are, where it says Gufo. First one on the line. Gufo shall get hareat muter l'chol adam. The essence of the get is when a man writes, you are now, to his wife, you are now allowed to marry anyone. V'lo tzarich lemichtav, according to the first opinion, the Tanakama, you don't need to write v'den and this shtar. De below v'den, without this v'den and this, mashma, it comes to tell us, de behai gita megarishna, with this get, you're megarisher. Why do you need to say, and with this I need to, well, the Chachamim said, the first explanation, the Tanakama said, the Gufo shel get is, now you are allowed to marry anyone. I'm writing it on this piece of paper. It has to be written on a piece of paper. And someone asked me recently on what type of paper does, let's say, a ketubah have to be written on, and as long as it's going to last, it could be on a piece of wood, it could be on a, but let's say it's on you're writing on a leaf or on something, on a piece of cabbage, it's not going to last like that, right? So it's obviously when he's giving it, it's on a piece of paper, it's on something that's going to last. So you don't have to write. So according to the Tanna Kama, you don't have to write the word v'den and this, because you're already giving a get. Gita megarishla, v'ihu hu deka megarishla, and it's obviously him that's being megarish, or it's obviously the man when he says, Reuven writes, I Reuven, I'm telling Sarah now you can marry anyone. It's obviously Reuven that's giving it. The yadayim she'en mochichot havya yadayim, and therefore, according to the first opinion, yadayim that are vague is still a yad, it still works, and it's still considered like a neder. It's still binding, and it's vague over here because all it says is you are now allowed to marry anyone. So it's vague, and yet it works. But according to Rav Yehuda, you have to be specific. Continue in the run. Rav Yehuda Omer v'den v'chule. De'i lo katuv v'den. If you don't write, and this is the document that I'm divorcing you with, havin yadayim she'en mochichot. These are yadayim that are not specific, that are vague. The dilma b'dibura megarishla. Come on, maybe he's showing that he's getting divorced through his words, and getting divorced through words is not a way to get divorced, even though it's written on paper. Harad mutar kol adam, but maybe it's it's just kind of written. You're not allowed to marry anyone, but maybe that's weak, and it needs more. And maybe okay, I'm writing this here, but I'm telling you more details outside of the paper. So no, everything's got to be written in the paper. Okay. Nevertheless, we see from here that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is you got to be more specific, and that's what Shmuel is writing on. Now asks the Gemara question. Amai dachik Shmuel. Why was he dochek himself? Why did he pressure himself? Why did he stress himself? Ukuma, to establish the matnitin, our Mishnah, ke Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Yehuda. Lukma ke Rabbanan. Establish it like Rabbanan. And it's more logical to say like Rabbanan, because Rabbanan has many rabbis and majority rules, rabim. So establish it like the Rabbanan. Afagav de en yadayim mochichot. Even though the yadayim is vague, it should still work. Like when you saw the Mishnah Shmuel, why did you go to Rav Yehuda that is specific? Go to say like the Rabbanan. And a further explanation on this is that the Mishnah says mirchukane mimcha, mufreshane mimcha. So those are vague terminologies. So it could have been that maybe murchukane mimcha, mudrane mimcha is telling you that I'm distancing myself from you on everything. Meaning it's vague, it's not specific. So if it's not specific, we said even last time, you could go either way. You could say, now that it's vague, you know what? Forget it. It's like you said nothing. As we said, Yadayim she'en mochichot is have a klum. Or you could say, because it's vague, it includes everything. Distance from me, meaning, you know what? Distance everything from me. So Shmuel looks at it that, no, it's vague and it's like nothing. Why are we saying that? Say, like Rabbanan, that says vague words includes everything. One second. Yeah, Shmuel says Mudranim Mimcha Stam is like Rabbi Yehuda. That's en mochichot and it's like nothing. Why? Say like the Rabbanan that says Yadayim she'en mochichot is Yadayim, and Mudranim Mimcha is the opposite extreme. Now everything's asur. And when it says the word Shani Ochel Lecha, it's just on Ochel. Shani Ochel Lecha is just on Ochel, and Mudranim Mimcha is on everything. Go more stringent like Rabbanan, and don't go more lenient like Rabbi Yehuda. Plus, it's better to go like Rabbanan over Rabbi Yehuda. Why did Shmuel go with Rabbi Yehuda? Why did he go more lenient on a vague terminology? Answers the Gemara, Amar Rava, says Rava, Matnitin kashite. The Mishnah was the question that bothered him. The wording of the Mishnah. Why? Amai Tani, because why does it say in our Mishnah, Shani ochel lecha, Shani toem lecha, that I am making a promise that I'm not going to make you, you're not going to eat from me. Shani ochel lecha, Shani toem lecha, to you. Litni, it could have said, Shani ochel, Shani toem. It could have said, Mudrani mimcha, Shani ochel. Mufreshani mimcha, Shani toem. It could have said that. The fact that I said lecha is now specific. So if it's specific, you see from over here that Rabbi Yehuda requires specific terminologies, specific wording. Shema minab, says the Gemara, Ba'in and Yadayim ochichot. You need Yadayim that are specific. So the Gemara's question was, Shmuel, why are you going lenient like Rabbi Yehuda that says that a vague terminology is like you said nothing? Distance yourself. I want a distance from you. It's like you said nothing. It's very, very vague. Say like the Rabbanan that says vague terminology is including everything. I'm distancing myself from you. That means everything's being distanced. Says Rava, you know why? Because the Mishnah said lecha, shani ochel lecha. That's specific. So once you're going specific, it means that you got to be specific over here. And if you're not specific, then it's like you said nothing. And the little bet over there is the Shulchan Aruch that rules you need, like Shmuel, you need Yadayim Ochichot. You got to be specific. We'll see if we have time. Yeah, let's see if we have time to check up the Shulchan Aruch. I think we will have time. Let's see. Okay, says the Gemara. Itmar. Yadayim she'en mochichot. Yadayim that are vague. Statements that are vague. Abaye Amar, Havyin Yadayim. Abaye says, it's a good yad. It's a good oath. It's a good neder. And now, something that's vague works, like Rabbanan. V'Rava Amar, lo Havyin Yadayim. No, it doesn't work. This is a machloket Amoraim. Abaye and Rava. So, Rava says it doesn't work. That's like Shmuel and like Rabbi Yehuda. Amar Rava. Says Rava, in the explanation of Lo Havyin Yadayim means you need to be specific. Amar Rava. Rabbi Idi is berali. Rabbi Idi explained to me the source of why you need to be specific. Because Amar Kra, the pasuk said, Nazir lahazir laHashem. We saw this pasuk already. If you have the full pasuk on the side, the pasuk says, Daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta lahem ish o isha ki yafli lindor neder. Yafli means to enunciate, and we're going to see in a moment a little bit more on this word. This is the key word here. Ki yafli lindor neder. When you enunciate, and actually I'll say it now, when you explicitly say lindor neder, and Nazir Lazir Lashem, a neder to become a Nazir. So we saw already earlier there's a connection between neder and Nazir. Now Rava says that Rav Idi taught him that it's from this pasuk that we learned that you need to be specific by yadot. Why? So says the Gemara, Nazir Lazir Lashem. This Nazir Lahazir, says the Gemara, Makish Yadot Nezirut Nezirut. We learned this already. We connect Yadot, Nezirut, to regular Nezirut. That means if a person just says a Yad, you just say a handle of a Nezirut or of a Neder, it works like a regular Neder, like a regular Nazir. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Ma Nezirut behafla'ah. Just like Nezirut is behafla'ah, is explicit, as the pasuk says, Ki yafli lindor neder, you have to be specific. Af yadot nezirut behafla'ah. So too, yadot nezirut needs to be specific. So says Rava, the source of being specific when it comes to Yadot is from here that Nazirut, Nazir Lazir, and has the word Hafla in the Pasuk. Hafla is explicit, and therefore Yadot, Nazirut, Nazirut needs to be specific. So Yadot need to be specific. That's the source. And if it's not specific, it's nothing. Let's read the run on the bottom of the page. All the way at the bottom. Ma Nazirut behafla. Just like Nazirut is specific, it's explicit. Pirush. The Amrina Masechet Nazir. We say in Masechet Nazir. The Amar Bitarfon. The Mishra Achavero. If a person saw his friend, the Amar, and he said, Hareni Nazir, Imze Nazir. A guy sees someone walking, and he's like, I'll be a Nazir if that guy's a Nazir. He didn't know at that time that he was a Nazir or not. He didn't know. He said, if that guy's a Nazir, I'll be a Nazir. Even though they found out later that that guy is a Nazir, that guy was a Nazir. And Nazirut chala alav. His Nazirut does not work. And I see a guy walking. If that guy's a Nazir, I'm a Nazir. And we find out that that guy's a Nazir, I'm still not a Nazir. Why? Because it was vague at the time when I said it. I said, well, if that guy's a Nazir, I'm a Nazir. That's still vague. And therefore, at the time of your oath, it was vague, it doesn't work. Let's continue reading the Ran. Mishum de ba'idna de kanazar. At the moment that you became a Nazir, ba'inan hafla'ah, you need to be specific. At the moment of your neder, you need to be specific. The ba'idna de kanazar. At the moment of Nazirut, ba'inan hafla'ah, you need to be specific. Veleka, and it wasn't the case. Continuing on the next page in the Ran, Mishum hachi, and therefore, Amrinan, we say, Ma Nazirut be'hafla'ah. Just like Nazirut is specific, Dehainu ha'hafla'ah de kamrinan, that's in the specifying exact, explicit way as we mentioned. Af Yadot Nazirut be'hafla'ah. So to Yadot Nazirut is be'hafla'ah. Yadot also have to be specific. So Rava says that Rav Idi taught him that this was the source. That Yadot need to be specific. Okay. The Gemara continues. We're about 2/3 down. First one along is behafla'a, and the second word is lema. 9 lines up from the bottom. Lema beplukta de Rav Yehuda v'Rabanan kamifligi. Says the Gemara that, we spoke it out already, that Rava is like Rav Yehuda, and Abaye is like Rabbanan. And if you need to be specific or not, says the Gemara, yeah, let's speak it out, that maybe the machloket is in tandem, like Rav Yehuda is a Tana, Rabbanan, so this is a machloket Amorai, they're going like these Tanaim. Lema beplukta de Rav Yehuda v'Rabbanan kamifligi. Maybe in the machloket of Rav Yehuda and Rabbanan, that is the machloket that Abaye and Rava are talking about also. The Tanan, Gufo shall get, as we saw in the Mishnah and Gitin, the essence of a get, Haret muter lo chol adam, is what? When a guy writes, you are now allowed to marry anyone. Rav Yehuda Omer, Rav Yehuda says, V'din de have lichai minai, and this, that I'm giving you, Sefer Tirochin, Veget Pturin, Viger Shvukin. Here he has a few extra words. Veget Pturin. It's basically, this is a piece of paper that's going to cut off. Says Rav Yehuda, therefore, you have to be more specific. So you see over here, Rav Yehuda is more specific. Rabbanan is more vague. Abaye Damar Rabbanan. Maybe Abaye that said, Yadayim she'en mochichot havin yadayim. Yadayim that are vague is considered yadayim. That's like Rabbanan. Ve'Rava de'amar Rabbi Yehuda, and Rava goes like Rabbi Yehuda. The Rava says things that are specific, that yadayim mochichot only is havi yadayim. Only if it's mochiach, only if it's clear, then it works as a yad. So the Rabbanan, the Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbanan will be like Rabbi Yehuda. So we have a machloket Tanaim, Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda. A machloket Amoraim, Abaye and Rava. It sounds like they're saying the same thing. Abaye is like Rabbanan, Rava is like Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, no. Maybe we could say that it's not comparable. Says the Gemara, Amar lach Abaye. Abaye will tell you, Anad Amrina Nafil Rabbi Yehuda. He says, look, I could also say like Rabbi Yehuda. My opinion could also fit with Rabbi Yehuda. His opinion is, Yadayim. She'en mochichot have yadayim. And Rabbi Yehuda says you have to be specific. What's going on? Says the Gemara. Ad kan lo ka'amar Rabbi Yehuda ba'inan yadayim mochichot ela gabe get de ba'inan kritut veleka. This is the Gemara like this. Amar lecha Abaye. Abaye will tell you, Ana, I, Abaye, de amri afil Rabbi Yehuda. I could even say like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said you need to be specific. Abaye said you don't need to be specific. I could still say like him. Why? Ad kan lo ka'amar Rabbi Yehuda. Until now, Rabbi Yehuda didn't say, meaning Rabbi Yehuda only says his law of being specific. Ba'inan yadayim mochichot. You need yadayim that are explicit. Ela gabe get. Only by a get. Only by a get you need to be specific. Why? The ba'inan kritut. You need cutting off. You need to cut off this marriage. And therefore you need to be specific. Veleka, and there isn't a cutting off if you're vague. So Rabbi Yehuda says you have to be specific by get. But Rabbi Yehuda might agree, other than get, nazir, etc., you could be vague. So Abaye says, I hold a vague. So, okay, in Rabbi Yehuda, I can also agree like Rabbi Yehuda. He'll also agree with me that everything's vague, except for a case of get, you need to be specific. But in general, does he hold like it? Meaning, in general, does Rabbi Yehuda say you have to be specific? No, just by get, because we need kritut. We need it to be specific in order to cut this marriage up, and therefore that needs to be exactly specific. But otherwise, he could say that we go vague, and the vague terminology works. And the Gemara continues 2 lines from the bottom. Rava Amar, and Rava says, Ana de Amriya fil Rabbanan. Rava says, I could even go like the Rabbanan. Rava was specific. Only specific works. Rabbanan was even vague works. Says Rava, I could even go like Rabbanan. I say vague. Why? Ad kan lo ka'ami Rabbanan de lo ba'inan yadayim mochichot. Until now, until here, only the Rabbanan said, Ad kan lo ka'ami Rabbanan de lo ba'inan yadayim mochichot. Get. That, because remember, the machloket of Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda is only by a get. That's the machloket. We want to try extrapolating that machloket and applying it to other things as well. Says the Gemara now, Abaye and Rava is saying, no, maybe that machloket is limited to get. Rabbi Yehuda says, be specific. You know why? Because get, you have to be specific. Rabbanan say, you don't need to be specific by a get. Why don't you need to be specific? Because obviously, if Reuben's giving it to Sarah, it's this Reuben giving it to Sarah. Like, who else is giving it? Let's read it inside. Says Rabbanan, maybe over here you don't need to be specific. Everywhere else you do need. And Rava says, I can say like Rabbanan, that you always need to be specific. Okay, in a case of get, you don't. Why not? Let's see. I, who hold specific, Rava says, I can even be like Rabbanan who says vague. Because ad kan lo ka'ami Rabbanan de lo ba'inani de mochichot ela gabe get. That Rabbanan say you don't need to be specific, you can be vague. That's only by a get you can be vague. Why? See the next page. A person doesn't divorce his friend's wife. He doesn't give a get. It doesn't work. You only give a get to your wife. So if a lady, you're giving a get to this lady, it's only going to work if it's your wife. And therefore, you don't have to be that vague. I am cutting off this marriage. You can go marry anyone else. I, Reuben, tell you, Sarah, you can now go marry everyone else. You don't have to, through this get that I am giving you, you don't have to be so specific.
You can have multiple wives.
Yeah. Or like a second, third.
You can have multiple wives.
For example, the
But
third
still,
wife
you're
can
still only
come
giving
up
it
with
to
the
your
first.
wife. You're still only giving it to your wife.
But
Like, who else are you giving it to?
No,
This
like,
wife
let's
Sarah,
say-
this wife
let's say-
Reuben, this wife...
No. Let's say a third wife comes up, finds the get of the first wife,
And she has
and
the same
says,
name.
"This is mine," because there is no name mentioned in it.
No, there's still a name
There's still a
mentioned.
name. There's still a
in
name.
the get, there's a name.
Yeah,
mentioned.
there always has to be a name.
It's
That's the
not in
thing.
this in this particular statement. We're saying.
Right. It's still Reuben giving Sarah a get.
The wedding of,
But it
it's the
just
marriage
says
of.
Sarah to
ketubah.
Reuven.
Huh?
That's ketubah.
No,
not
but
the get.
still Sarah to Reuven.
Uh-huh.
I am now, Sarah tells Reuven, now you can go marry anyone else. Or the second case is Reuven to Sarah, now you can marry anyone else. Or in the Rabbi Yehuda is more specific, like through this get that I'm giving you, Sarah, this is abandoning you, this is cutting you off, this is a, so that's like more specific, more
She's
detailed.
also probably standing next to him or in,
Yeah, but it seems like those
proximity,
factors aren't changed.
maybe.
It seems like those factors aren't changed, but it's you don't have to be that specific because you're not giving it to who are you giving it to? You're giving it to your wife. So Rabbanan would say, okay, you're giving it to the wife. Bedin sees the girl has it. Like who else is you getting a get from? So you don't have to be that specific. We know who it is. Otherwise, in other cases, we need to be specific because it could mean other things. A get, it could just mean between you and your wife. Even if you have 10 wives, it could just this Sarah, wife Rivka, wife Esther, wife whatever, right? So unless you have a wife with the same name, whatever, but it's between you and the wife. It's not between anyone else.
But in that case, you don't have to be specific.
So that's what I'm saying. You don't have to be specific. That's what the Rabbanan say. So therefore, when the Machlok of Rabbanan and Rabbi Yehuda, says you have to be specific, Rabbanan says you don't have to be specific. And in the Machlok Rabbi and Rava, Rabbi says you don't have to be specific. And Rava says you do have to be specific. We want to compare these two Machlokets. Says the Gemara that it's good timing anyways, don't worry. Yeah. So says the Gemara that you might have thought that these Machlokets are the same. Says the Gemara, no, they're not the same. Because maybe the Machloket of Rav Yehuda and Rabbanan is only by a get. Only by a get. And therefore, when Rav Yehuda was specific, you need to be specific. It's only by a get, because by a get you're cutting off. You have to make sure that it's to this person, that person. It's there's no questions about it. It needs to be. Otherwise, maybe Rav Yehuda says, well, let's be vague. It's fine. And then when Rabbanan say vague, that's only by get, because we could flip it and look at the other side. You can be vague because who else is getting divorced from you? You to your wife. No one else is involved over here. Otherwise, you can be specific. You need to be specific otherwise. And therefore, this machlok Rabbanan and Yehuda by Gitin doesn't necessarily connect to the machlok Rabbi and Rava. This should be the last part inside. Then Adam megarish et ishto et eshto chavero. But in general, does it have to be vague? It can be specific. And therefore, the machloket of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan does not necessarily connect to the machloket of Abaye and Rava. Okay, this will end the Gemara. Let's just take a look quickly at the Shulchan Aruch, and then we'll call it a day. Okay, we keep it on. You have a question? You don't want to be recorded? Okay. So in the Shulchan Aruch, Seif Reish Vav, Aleph, says Yadot Nedarim K'Nedarim. Yadot Nedarim K'Nedarim, as we know. And here explains what's Yadot. Pirush Yadot she'itchil lindor v'lo gamar hadibur. He started to make the neder but didn't finish it. V'afapichen hu ne'esar ke'ilu nadar et kol hadibur. And it's as if you said the whole thing. Adam she'ochez beyad hakli v'yadei kach mishtamesh bekli ke'ilu achaz bo be'atzmo. You hold the handle. It's as if you held the whole thing. Ve'hu she'hu mochichot k'tzat ala neder. It needs to be specific a little bit on the neder itself. Ketzat. How does that work? Ha'omer l'chavero mudreni mimcha she'eni ochel lecha. I'm mudar from you that I'm not going to eat by you. Or mufrushani mimcha she'eni ochel lecha. And that is Shmuel. You have to be specific. You have to say both. In the bracket, like we have our girsa. Was also asur. If all you said was, I'm not going to eat from you, so he said it's not a yad. Now we did learn until now that still means I'm not going to eat from you. Okay, let's see. Let's say he just said merchukani mufrushani and he did not say shani ochelecha. So we're pausing here. Until now we learned in Shmuel that if you just said the beginning, it's like nothing, right? So here Shulchan Aruch is interesting. If you just in Mudranim Mimcha, asur ledaber imo. You can't speak to him. This is those examples that we gave before. Mufrushanim Mimcha, asur laset v'latet imo. You can't do business with him. Muchanim Mimcha, asur la'amod b'nad amotav. You can't do the stand in his dalet amot. Meaning, it's not everything, because we gave examples, and the Shulchan Aruch is going with those examples. Now the Shach, I said this before the Shiur, the Shach asks and says, the Ran and others say, if you, in Shmuel, you just say, Mufushanim Micha, it's nothing. Why is the Shulchan Aruch saying that it is, Mufushanim Micha is, you can't do business with him. Ruchukanim Micha is, you can't stand in his dalet amot. So he answers that those examples that were given earlier in that Gemara weren't just any examples. It was examples that are the closest to the meaning of what you said, and you didn't say nothing. It's like you didn't say, you said Mufushanim Mimcha. You said Miruchukanim Mimcha, I'm distance from you. You did say something. So basically the answer is you're taking the least of what you said, the most minute, because you did say something. So it's not like you said nothing. So the least were those examples that were given. This Miruchukanim Mimcha is, okay, I can't do business with you. Everything else I could do. Mufushanim Mimcha is, I can't stand within your dalet amot. So the Shulchan Aruch is going still with Shmuel, that it's not everything, because we said a vague lashon is not mochichot, it's not everything, but it's also not nothing, and it's at least those examples that were given here. It's interesting how Shulchan Aruch rules. And he says that's the Rambam rules like that from our Gemara as well. Yeah, generally, 95% of the time, Shulchan Aruch
Is the answers
is the final. Yeah, is the halacha that's pulled out from the debates, etc. Okay, Chazak Baruch. We'll give you some other free time. I'm sorry I didn't check up this long round over here. I would have liked to, but time is always of essence. Chazak Baruch.